Good evening, everybody. It's wonderful to be here tonight and wonderful to see so many familiar faces in the audience. My name is Jude Wood. I'm the Executive Director of the Boys and Girls Club, and I've worked in the youth development field for over 12 years now. Prior to that, I worked on policy in youth and health. And in that time, I've started to see a common scenario, and that is that our youth are becoming less resilient. There are many reasons for that, but tonight I'm going to tell you how we can change it. Tonight, we're going to learn how to build a resilient community. Take a moment for me. Think back to your childhood. What scenes come to your mind? I'm hoping that you're thinking about birthday parties, perhaps days at the beach. If you're a Tahoe local, maybe it's the first time you skied down the mountain or hit that home run in Little League. I hope they're amazing memories. But sadly, statistically, for half of you in this audience, they will not be good memories. Perhaps there was somebody in your household who told you you were worthless. Perhaps they told you you wouldn't amount to anything, that you were stupid. Perhaps there were times when you didn't have enough food to eat or clean clothes to wear to school. And worst case scenario, perhaps you were physically or sexually assaulted. That is the sad reality for over half our children today. And it crosses all races, all religions, all socioeconomics. And the truth of it is, we're only just beginning to understand how those adverse childhood experiences, even just one bad experience, can affect you for the rest of your life. Research is showing that if you have had an adverse childhood experience, you are more likely to suffer from depression. You are more likely to abuse drugs or become an alcoholic. And you are even more likely to suffer from cancer, heart disease, and other health impacts, which seem unrelated, but actually they are. So now I've completely depressed you all, I get that. I apologize. But there is hope. The Oxford English Dictionary, I'm very sorry, Webster, I just couldn't bring myself to do it, describes resiliency of the ability of people or things to feel better, to recover quickly after a sudden shock or injury. Or even more tellingly, the ability of a substance to return to its normal shape after it has been put under incredible stress, pressure, tension. And if we think about people, why is it that some of us can go through real trauma, extreme hardship, and carry on fine, while others, at the simplest hurdle, crumble? And that is down to resiliency. In 1974, Dr. Norman Garmansey was studying schizophrenia. And he noticed that despite all his patients, all those he was researching, having the same condition, some were coping far better than others. And he started looking into why that was. And it was because of something called protective factors. Now I'm going to tell you what those are. Firstly, parental resilience. Do your parents have loving, supportive relationships? Are your parents able to cope in times of stress, times of doubt? That greatly impacts a child's ability to then deal with those situations. The second is social connections. Maybe you can't communicate with mom and dad, but maybe you love your aunt. And maybe your mom can also turn to that aunt in times of trouble. Maybe you have great friends, a great community that support you. It is those social connections that pull us through those difficult times and why they're so important. Do you have concrete support in times of need? Now, I live a long, long way from my family. But I know if I am struggling, if I have a problem I need to deal with, I can pick up the phone, and there are hundreds of people, some of you are in the audience here tonight, who will come and who will help me. And that's incredibly important. For others, it might simply be knowing where you can go and get a bag of groceries when you don't have any money. Knowing where you can go and get help with that rent, which are incredibly high here in Tahoe. Again, that is what gets you through those times of stress and enables you to be resilient. Also incredibly important is parents having knowledge about child development. Parenting is the hardest job in the world. I know, I'm in the thick of it. And nobody gives you a handbook, or even if they do give you a handbook, then your child doesn't follow the rules, so it's useless anyway. But it is vitally important for a child's success that when they are throwing a tantrum about having to put on clothes and go to school, that dad realizes that that is a normal behavior for that child at that age, and it is not that there is something wrong with that child and that they have to be shut in their room until they get over it. We need to educate our parents, and they need to get over the stigma of being educated, because it's hard to go to people and be like, I don't know what to do. You know, we really need to encourage that. And finally, we really need to improve the social and emotional competence of our children. Now, this is the key watchword in education right now. Social and emotional learning, social and emotional intelligence. But what is really important is fostering the ability in children to communicate their needs in an appropriate manner and to build those great peer-on-peer relationships, build those good relationships with the adults in their life. And that is crucial. So how do we increase these protective factors in our community? Well, funnily enough, I have a few ideas. Well, firstly, we need to support the adults in the child's life. When I moved here from Europe, and I was told that the average employee in the US gets 10 days off a year, I spat my newly discovered caramel macchiato, non-fat, extra hot, across the table. I could not believe it. And that is an issue, quite frankly. We don't have good maternity leave. We don't have good paternity leave. Mandatory in California is just 3 sick days in an entire year. You know, when that bug goes through the school, you're lucky to not just have 3 days you need to take off. As employers, as organizations, and as businesses in this community, we need to do better by our staff, and we need to introduce family-friendly practices that enable parents to parent. Give that staff member time off to go do her child's walkathon. Enable your staff to work from home when that child is sick. I know that's not always possible in every single job, but the more flexible we are, the more family-friendly practices we put in place, the more you are going to contribute to having good employees in the future. Because those children are your future employees, and we've got to make them resilient. We also need to support the organizations that promote resiliency. I'm extremely biased, but I truly believe that the Boys and Girls Club, on a daily basis, is supporting, providing a safe environment, and holding children accountable, and that is increasing their resiliency. But there are many organizations in this town that support families and children day in, day out, that contribute to those protective factors that I went through. And they need your help to enable them to continue to do that. We have to start supporting those organizations. And we need to start introducing policies, laws, procedures that look at the long-term success of our community. And that is not just at a city level, that is at a county level, a state level, a national level. we are far too retroactive in our policy making. We let a problem get big, and then we throw our hands up. How are we going to solve this? Well, I urge you, when you next go to the polls, put that check mark next to the person that is thinking about family-friendly practices, that is thinking about affordable housing, that is thinking about how to build neighborhoods where communities can support each other. And is not just thinking about the right now, but is thinking about what the issues of our community are going to be 10 years from now, 20 years now, and 30 years from now. Because if we are not building up resiliency, those problems are already here. They're just not going to manifest right now. But perhaps the most important thing is that we need to be responsible, and we need to step up for each other. The greatest thing that is going to help the resiliency of the children in our community is to believe that they matter. That to someone, they are perfect just the way they are. And to illustrate this, I'm going to tell you a story. He's pretty cute, isn't he? While that beautiful smile hides a whole world of trauma. His parents were very young when they married. They separated when he was still a baby. At the age of 2, his mother handed him over to his father and stepped out of his life. His father did not have parental resiliency. He did not have those concrete support structures. And he did his best, but much of his elementary childhood was spent bouncing around. He went to pretty much every single school in this community. He lived in numerous neighborhoods. He spent significant chunks of time with other family members. And then at 9, his world was turned upside down when his beloved grandfather, the one person whose eyes lit up when he walked into the room, was murdered while at work in San Francisco. Shortly after, he was reunited with his mother and went to live in a different state. There, he was abused by his stepfather. His uncles drove thousands of miles to extract him from that abusive situation. And he returned here to Southlake to live with his father until at the age of 17, he was no longer wanted in the household anymore. He spent his senior year couch surfing, living a week here, a week there with friends, teachers, coaches, and despite that, he still managed to graduate with a 3.4. Now you're probably thinking, no one should have to go through that. That is unacceptable. But if you were listening carefully to my story, you'll have heard a few key things that enabled him to still be successful. Family members took him in, sometimes for years at a time. His uncles drove thousands of miles to get him out of that situation. When he was at his lowest and had nowhere to live, friends, teachers, coaches helped him out. Who's made a difference in your life? Who is the person that you can say, yes, because of them, I am the person I am today? And whose life are you going to make a difference in? It could be your own children, and that is extremely important. I urge you to do that. But what about that kid next door? What about that bad kid in your kid's class? What about getting involved in one of our many organizations that supports and mentors kids? Because believe me, if you step forward and tell them that they matter, it will make a difference. And it won't just make a difference to that child, it will make a difference to our community. And if you're wondering about that kid, well, he did okay. He's my husband, the father of my child, a coach, a friend, and a beautiful human being. Thank you.